This meeting is called to order. This is a meeting of the Finance and Investment Committee in the Vallecitos Water District for Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 at 9 a.m. at the district office. Is there any public in attendance? No. And public comment?
No, we did not receive any.
So we'll move on to items for discussion and go right into it with number one, preliminary salaries and benefits.
Yeah, so this is going to be the West Owen show today, and I don't know what Jody will be helping out. James will be late. We have
I just saw him go by.
oh, awesome. Okay, so James won't be too late.
It's going to be in the peanut gallery, it looks like.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you get here late, you get what you get. Right?
I'm on timeout in the corner.
So I think that the key word for today's stuff is preliminary. So you're going to see a lot of work in progress, best information we have to date, but the numbers will change between now and when the final budget gets presented. So just keep that in mind all along. So with that, Wes, are you not keyed up to do salaries and benefits first?
I'm ready to go.
Okay,
Let's do it. So, I feel like I'm in a short seat though.
Are you sharing the screen? I just want to make sure before.
Last guy gets the shorts.
We cut one of the legs.
Sharing. Okay, so I'll apologize in advance for the length of the meeting today and the amount of materials. I know you got your email with 9 different documents. Typically, that's 2 meetings worth of materials, but we're kind of putting 2 into 1. So in some areas, we'll try to go into less detail than I would normally, but if you have any questions, as always, feel free to ask. Okay, so the budget party page 2024. Yay, let's get going. And then the agenda for today, we're going to go over, first we'll do the background progress update, which is just a review of the calendar, basically. And then we'll talk about the preliminary salaries and benefits. And actually, just to note, the preliminary salaries and benefits does include the latest MOU offer, so everything's been incorporated, so we can see, all of that. Then we'll review the operating budget requests, so that's all the materials and services. And those have been incorporated and sort of massaged a little bit or modified and refined. And then after that, we'll take a look at the capital budget request. And it's important to note that the capital budget requests have just been finalized, and that was done like Friday that we close that off. So this is just the initial pass of the capital budget request. We just entered everything. We've done a lot of work to do as far as moving the amounts around and working on that, the reserve forecasts.
Next to slide down.
I'll slip in. I'll sit the next one. Baby goes in the corner.
yeah, nobody puts baby in.
I'll be baby in the corner today. Apologize for my tardiness.
And then finally, we'll go over the next steps, which will just be the next steps in the budget calendar and the budget process. So getting started, budget calendar. So just review, in February, we updated the budget with the actuals from the audit and we put in the 2023 projections, and then the departments submitted their budget requests. And then in March, we actually started putting all that into the budget. And March 17th, we had a meeting to review the budget calendar and the budget versus actual for the last 5 years. So in April, our internal process is we incorporate all of the operating budget requests, we do the debt service forecast, and we begin to revise and refine the budget. And now we are at the April 11th Finance Committee meeting. This meeting will be talking about the salaries and benefits, operating budget requests, and capital budget requests. And we have everybody here to answer questions. We got the AGM, we have the district engineer, we have an O&M manager, myself and Glenn to answer any questions you have on all this detail. So getting started, the preliminary salaries and benefits, this is the slide that I sent to you. This is basically a presentation of page 25 of the budget, but I've added a few columns to the right. Actually, I can probably use it. I've added a few columns to the right so that we can do some analysis on the budget. So the first thing I do want to point out about this slide, and you'll see the A, B, C, D on the top labels that helps us figure out what the formulas are. And the first thing I want to point out is that column D is the preliminary budget for 2023-24. Now, analyzing that and comparing it to other columns, well, actually, first we're going to do the projected for 2023 to the budget for 2023. So how are we looking this year? What's our progress to date? And so basically we took March 31st, 2023 and extrapolated it to the end of the year to get an idea of where we'll be projected versus budget. And when we look at this, we're going to be $286,000 below budget on salaries. Reason for that is mainly just turnover and replacing people at lower rates. And then we're going to be about $145,000 low on the total salaries and benefits. And the reason it's a little bit less low, I guess I'll say, is because group insurance increased by $232,000. That increase resulted from increases in rates from, I think it is, it's Blue Cross HMO plans. So all the Blue Cross HMO plans went up about 7% this year, which comes that.
Yeah, I was surprised when I looked at this yesterday, that group insurance is actually higher than the district cost for hers. Has it been that way for a
It
while?
has been, yeah.
And we're
It's a little
reducing,
bit shocking. to me.
and we've been reducing the cost of the PERS because we're paying down the UAL. So
That was my other question that takes into account the unfunded liability.
So next, we're going to look at the projected versus actual for 2022. So kind of comparing actual versus actual for 2 years if projected counted. And 2023 is going to come in about $268,000 higher than 2022. That's mainly just due to an increase in overtime in 2022. And then total salaries and benefits is going to be $787,000 higher than it was in 2022. And a lot of that is due to the group insurance increases again. So then moving on, budget versus budget, 2024 is projected to be $1,048,000 higher than 2023 budget versus budget, which is about 9.57%. The benefits are budgeted to be $560,000 higher than last year, which is, and for a total salaries and benefits increase of $1.6 million or 9.55%. The reason for that increase is $1.2 million is related to the latest offer on the MOU. And then there are normal steps of about 208,000. And then there is one position being proposed in the budget, and which results in an increase in salaries and benefits of about $193,000.
Yeah, just to remind, what's that position? It's an operation.
Yeah, it's an assistant O&M manager.
Oh. What does that mean?
Means I'm retiring in less than 2 years,
Succession
What I
planning.
thought of that, yeah.
and I'm a bit overwhelmed probably for the last year.
I feel your pain.
You remember,
Increase in regulations and requirements or just happens that workload.
yeah, it's too much.
And the last thing on the slide, you can see down bottom, the one projected position increase down there in operations. So moving on with salaries and benefits, next is my colorful slide.
Go back just a second, the benefits of the percentage of salaries, does that remain pretty consistent over time?
Yeah.
And it's the low 50s is pretty typical, I think, with the agency.
Even with the increases in the insurance.
And we'll see kind of in this slide here. So you can see this is my colorful slide, I call it. Budget versus actual. The actuals are going to be the blues, the budgets are the red. And on the bottom half, we have the salaries over the last 5 years. And on the top, we have the benefits. So you can kind of see the relation of the two, and it's pretty consistent over the 5 years. And then if we look at how we performed, budget versus actual, we've been pretty good at budgeting salaries and benefits. In the last 2 years, we've actually been under budget, salaries and benefits by 1.5% and 0.9%. So that's the colorful slide. Next, I just wanted to look at the position counts. So position counts over the last, this actually has 8 years. We went back 8 years just to get the full effect of, back in 2016, we actually had 115 authorized positions. And then in 2017, we eliminated about 4 positions. And then in 2018, we eliminated another 3 positions, and we've stayed pretty consistent since then. We added 1 position in 1920 with the asset management supervisor, but it's been 10875 since then. So those are the full-time equivalents. And you can see in 2023, we actually have 5 vacancies right now. We're hoping to fill at least one of those by the end of this fiscal year, hopefully more, but I've got 4 in here just to be.
Does that account for the new person we just got yesterday in construction?
No,
He started yesterday. Yeah.
So yeah, the less of these green, less of green we have, the better. And
Yeah.
they're all budgeted for as far as the salaries. They're just shown as vacant and you can budget what you do.
And Rhonda's there is.
She's the one we're hoping, that I was hoping to have to reduce the 5 down. to 4. So now I can go down to 3.
Yeah, we've made an offer, but she hasn't accepted yet, so please get back to me.
And she's coming in at a lower rate.
Lower than Ronnie's at, yeah. We downgraded the position and she's coming in a lower step than Ronnie's at, so we'll see significant savings between what Ronnie was at and the new person coming in.
So that was salaries and benefits. Now we're going to move on to operating expenses. If there are no questions, no other questions on salaries and benefits. So first, we're going to look at the water operating expenses, and this is just a summary of the total water operating expenses. And it's important to note that water purchases is 72% of our total water operating expenses. The other 28% is made up of the operational costs and salaries and benefits. And for this presentation, since we've already talked about salaries and benefits, we're going to focus on the water operations costs of $3.5 million. So looking at that, and this is a summary of FY23 because we don't have the full picture for 24 yet, but this is just to give you an idea of what portion of the total cost we're looking at or analyzing right now. So moving on to 24's details, this next slide is going to show sort of how the materials I sent you flow through and why I sent them all to you. So there are 2 materials and services detailed documents, water and sewer, and this is what they look like. They have all the details to the request. So you can see here we have water quality materials and supplies and all the detail to it. And then we have the outside services for water quality. So these are the detailed documents, the water and sewer material and services that you got. From there, you can see all the details. You can see whether the costs, we like to note whether they're recurring costs or new costs, like one-time, one-year costs.
That's helpful. Thank you.
So that's what this column here shows. And then just moving on with that, we can see that same thing just minimized a little bit. And this is how it flows through to the budget document I sent you, which is the water operating budget and the sewer operating budget. And you can see here's the water quality department. And this would be on page 12 of that document. And the $95,000 from the materials and services in detail is summarized over here to page 12 under materials and supplies. And then you have $42,000 total outside services, which is summarized over here on page 12 under outside services. The cost of labor, we actually just covered going through salaries and benefits. It's broken out by department and then summarized on that one page that I just presented to you. And in total water quality would be $217,000 in this example. And that's actually the request for fiscal year 2024. So that's how the documents flow together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the summarized version. And then if there are variances that I need to identify or explain, I'll break it down into the detail for you. So here is page 11 of the water operations budget. I added a column to the right just to compare the 22, 23, 23, 24 budgets to get to any major variances so we can look at why they have increased or decreased. So here you can see that column and the major variances. First, I wanted to point out before I go on, there's the water quality number for the example I just showed you, the $217,000. And then if we look, the total change from budget year to budget year 23 to 24 is $1.3 million or 9.6% increase. And that includes the not the full 1.6, the portion of the 1.6 that's related to water is included in here of the salaries and benefits. Remember, salaries and benefits increased this year by $1.6 million. A portion of that goes to the water section, which is here. Not all of it, but it's incorporated here. Well, I explained that well enough. Does that make sense? So taking a look at this, my mouth, there it goes. The transmission distribution budget is increasing by $181,000. Of that, I believe it's $135,000 is related to labor, $134,000. So we won't look into the detail of that too much for this sake of time. And then engineering increased by $207,000. That's mostly labor as well, $145,000 increase in labor there. And then information technology will break that down. And G&A $348,000. So as I mentioned, transmission and distribution is labor, engineering is labor. And then now we're going to take a look at the detail for information technology. So this is page 14 of the water operation budget, which breaks out the information technology. It's still summary level, but it's a little bit more detailed than the total. And you can see here, the biggest increase in information technology is in outside services. And that's $79,000. The major reason for that.
Back just a second. As an example, I've noticed a lot of the work centers, there's wide swings in materials and supplies. You can kind of see it in this one. You know, actual 21, 22, the 100, and then goes to 36 for budget and projected 76. Draft 42. It seems like there's wide swings in a lot of these.
Yeah.
And I assume maybe it's some things aren't on an annual basis, there may be every other year or inflation or supply chain issues or things like that.
Yeah.
Is that?
A lot of it has to do with timing. Most of the material and supplies is timing. So if we budget $100,000, maybe we weren't able to get it. And we don't know what the budget is for 22, but say that the budget's projected is 36 versus 76. My guess would be that in 22, we didn't get all the stuff we needed, so we ended up purchasing some of it in 23, which is why the projected is so much higher than the budget for 23.
It just seems like I saw several of them like this where they kind of bounced around.
You're gonna see that throughout, because a lot of times we want to to secure materials,
Yeah.
supply chain issues.
Yeah.
You'll see that especially probably pointed out when we get into vehicles and equipment.
Okay.
We actually won't be covering that.
Oh, really? Okay, you'll see it later.
And
That's been a real challenge.
I think we're going on.
Yeah, okay,
two
that's what I
years
found.
of Trying to order vehicles.
Yeah, I just got the vehicles and equipment information yesterday, so I wasn't able to incorporate it in the presentation, yet, but we'll have it for the next
Yeah,
meeting.
it looks like we're finally gonna get some of our vehicles, so that's encouraging.
And we still have like 6 or 7 that are carrying over though.
But it was gonna be much bigger. It's like, it's crazy.
Yeah, so you'll see big numbers, but then it's the previous years we budgeted and then we spent the money because we couldn't get.
Yeah, okay.
So the $79,000 increase in outside services and information technology, if we look at the detail, which is the material and services, water detail, here's the IT department. And the two biggest increases there are that they're requesting SCADA support of $71,000 for the year. And they're also requesting a water and sewer gems Bentley of $29,000. And I believe that's Jason's fault.
Yep.
So that's why he's cheering over there.
Can you talk a little bit about that, Jason?
So currently, we only have one license and we have 2 technicians and a supervisor that have to juggle that license to do the work. We're seeing a significant increase in water sewer studies, which require that modeling software. So that's our modeling software. And so that's why we're asking for another license.
And it's called a Bentley.
I thought that was the vehicle supply.
That's like that's just the price of
So the
Yeah.
general manager put that in.
Yeah.
Jason's high class, so you need to.
It's for my stuff. I'm trying to get the work done.
Okay, so moving on. Next, we have G&A, our general and administrative expenses increased. The budget increased by $348,000 from 23 to 24. And looking at that detail, we can see a lot of that is due to cost of labor increasing by $282,000. And also regulatory fees increasing by $136,000. And the regulatory fees are increasing by $136,000 because we have this new lead service line inventory.
It's lead.
Lead
service.
Lead pipe.
I know, it's spelled the same.
So, and Ed can explain this too, actually, because he knows that it's a lead service line.
So the US EPA passed a regulation and it's really in response to the Flint, Michigan lead crisis they had a few years back. So water agencies throughout the United States now are not only responsible for the district owned service line, which we did in 2018, California required all public water agencies to perform an inventory. We had 0 of our service lines from the main to the meter that were lead, and we knew that was going to be the case. Now we have to account for it from the service, from the meter to the customer's home. It's not our property. This is why there's been such a pushback from the water agencies. Now they're making us liable for customer side, but we have to inventory every single service line from the meter to the house now. And chaos has ensued from this. There are ways that we can do this through GIS. So Jason, James and I have been working on this probably for the last year and a half. But that's the low hanging fruit, and we can get information from the city, the building codes, the state of California. Obviously, it was 85, 86 banned all lead materials in construction, but it's the homes built prior to that where this is really for consultant. So we reached out, we got a quote from a consultant, and we're in phase 1 right now, and then that's to pay for phase 2 going into the next year, because we have to have all of this inventory done by October of 24.
And we don't have the manpower to do that type of effort.
It was for all 22,000.
Yeah. So even though we could unequivocally state that based on the year things were built, that there's no lead, the state still requires you to have a program where you put boots on the ground to do field verification, even if it's sampling. So not everyone. So no matter what, we're gonna have to go to brand new homes and verify that they have no lead services.
What about appurtenances on the service line that are brass? The old brass has high lead content.
They're not going after that, but if there's galvanized with lead before or after, then that galvanized will also be considered a lead service line. I don't foresee Vallecitos being such a young agency. Most of our construction started in the 80s, and so most of that's probably not an issue. And I would assume, hopefully, that most customers would have replaced anything like that in their
I was
service line.
thinking about the drinking fountain issue at school.
Right, that was, that's also the US EPA is gonna force districts, which we already did in California, to test schools and,
That's probably
Daycare.
ongoing.
yeah,
But
it's
I'm just
changing for us.
wondering if it's gonna lead into the
It-
service lateral.
If nobody has a problem with, yeah, this is a good thing for, we need to get rid of lead anywhere we can. It's, and they're saying that they're gonna fund it, but only for certain agencies, and California is not getting that funding because California is considered, well, most of your facilities are new, you're not gonna have a lot of agencies that have a lot of lead service lines to replace, so California federal funding is in front of us.
Probably for disadvantaged community.
Correct.
Only.
And so we will not see any of that. But this is to put together a program that will be accepted by the state and the US EPA.
Is it possible? Because we're gonna have to do this going forward with new construction as well, right?
Well, it's outlawed now. So
Yeah, so new construction, if you have a program in place. Then you kind of check the box, because it doesn't make it so, but since we don't have a program in place, because it's brand new, we have to create a program. And the program will state unequivocally that with new construction based on these facts, that having lead after the meter would be impossible. Unless some homeowner purposely did it. So we'll be good, but right now, since we don't actually have a program in place. Then, yeah, if we had no program in place, we'd have to actually physically go check.
So there is an end to this
Yes.
inventory. It's not.
October of 24, and we are required by law to have this inventory submitted by October of 24.
Thank you.
Until they come up with a new regulation, but yes. So,
Okay, moving on. So next, we're going to talk about the wastewater operating expenses, and this shows the summary of last year's wastewater operating expenses of $14.2 million. And we can see here that 23% of the wastewater operating expenses is results from the Encina Wastewater Authority. And then from there, we have 28% that are not salaries and benefits. And of that, we're going to focus on the $2.3 million down here, the 16%, because the other $1.6 million is metal art. That's our treatment costs. And the majority of that is recovered through reclaimed water sales. So we're really going to focus on the $2.3 million down here. So we're looking at about 16% of the total wastewater operating. So this is page 21 of the wastewater operations budget. And this summarizes all the departments. And again, I added the column to the right. Compare the two budget years, and we can see the major variance of the total change is $433,000 or 3.04%. And the major variances or reasons for that increase are engineering going up by 128,000 and information technology going up by 125,000. So looking at those two, we'll take a look at engineering first, 128,000. Here is the summary page on page 23, and you can see the major reasons for that $128,000 increase are $59,000 in the cost of labor and $58,000 in outside services. And looking at outside services, this is on page 9 of the sewer materials and supplies document that was sent to you. And here we can see there's a blue water strategies lobbying and CSA request for $20,500. There's also a methodic protection system testing of $17,600 and GIS technical support utility network $29,400. So if you have any questions about those, I believe Jason can answer your questions in those things.
Yeah, so Blue Water Strategies, that's a partnership with all the local, I think just the North County agencies that we contribute. It's an estimate, so whether we'll spend that, don't know, but that's what's been presented to the agencies, so we've got a line item to track that.
Lobbying to get federal funds for this project.
And it's been fruitful for us because we've already secured over $2 million in actual grants for projects that are in our budget to build.
The cathodic protection, now that I'm seeing that in the, I don't believe that should be hitting the sewer fund, it probably should be hitting the water fund, so I'll look at that, but what we did find this year is we found significant more cathodic assets than we identified than were previously. So our asset count went up, and then the costs, we use an outside consultant to do a survey on those, and so those costs went up. And
So what kind of, I'm sorry, what kind of systems do we have? Are they passive anode?
Yeah.
Primarily.
Yeah.
We have a-
Few impressed.
I think we're getting rid of all, or. we getting-
Yeah, so only a 30-inch going from Vallecitos 9 up to
Right.
Veracruz. We have a couple of impressed current cathodic protection beds on that, but that's about it. We're getting rid of them on the
We also have
field
some
tank storage, but
areas next to the water authorities and press current systems that we have to do extra monitoring because of their pipe, when they're using our pipe as.
So do we do testing in house?
we've been contracting over that.
yeah, and we've been doing that for, I don't know, 10 years.
We do every 2 years, we do a full system survey, come up with a report and results, and from there. In the off year, we hope to fix the stations, fix the anodes, put new anodes, and kind of tackle what we can. This will go, if Jason correct me if I'm wrong, into our asset management group to manage more tightly, because when CIP was managing, when they got busy, they would push that to the side because they didn't have the time to do it, but then it's really sacrificing the health of our system, so that's why it's now under asset management.
Yeah, asset management now manages this, and we've got a CIP project, which you'll see to address a lot of the discrepancies. We're getting some deep bed anodes that are starting to get to the end of their life. Those are significantly expensive to replace, and then just all the test stations, broken wires, buried boxes, all these things that have really been sort of neglecting over the years, because like James said, we just been really busy. Now we're kind of bringing that under asset management and trying to tackle it, which it comes at a cost.
It's part of a holistic approach with asset management to hope over time reduce, not only the number of breaks, but the costs associated with fixing breaks.
And the GIS tech support, so we retired a GIS technician, gosh, was it last year?
Yeah.
And that position was not replaced. It was reclassified, which the board approved, I think over the fall. So to assist in the lack of internal services, we've increased our consultant costs. And that's what that is.
Is that still proving to be a good buy?
Not only
Value?
good cost, but also a sort of a higher level of technical skills and abilities. So really helping us.
Okay, so next we're gonna look at information technology increased by $125,000, and taking a look at the detail to that, the major reason is an increase in outside services of $80,000. And this is gonna be basically a repeat of the water section, where IT is water and sewer split on most of the stuff that they do. So we're looking here, the SCADA support is $69,000, the sewer portion. And we've got the water gems, there's Jason's pen again for $28,000, that's the other portion of the cost. So we've already kind of talked about those, so unless there are any questions, we'll move on to capital.
It's split 50-50.
5149.
It's a Rolls Royce.
Okay, so next we're gonna look at capital.
It's an unfortunate name for.
I don't, would you want to buy a software that was called from a company named Pinto? It's suspicious.
Pinto for Q. So. Must have been his first car.
They're down on the side of the road.
You just lost all three.
I used to have a, no one talk about Chevy now, but I'll go on. So the capital asset. So here is an example capital project page. So this is a detailed page and you were sent the capital improvement program, which has approximately like 85 of these pages. So each project has its own page with its description and what it's made up of. And this is actually page 66 of that packet. And I just randomly chose one because I like the Band-Aid over the water pipe there.
I believe that was.
Now, a project that's funding source is split between, you'll show the percentage split between developer and replacement.
Yep. So that, and yeah, when we get that funding source, that's how it comes out of the 5-year plan or the reserve report. So if it's funded at 110, 120, the water replacement and water capacity, that's how we identify where the expenditures are taken out of. So this is the Las Postas water line replacement. That's the title of the project. This has a short description of what the project is. And then we have the project manager or the person responsible. And then over here, you have the department and the funding source. So this is water replacement. So this would come out of Fund 110 in the reserve report. Or if you're looking at the budget, it's in the long range planning section, which is our 5-year and 10-year reserve projections. And then we have our comments, which is just a more detailed explanation of what the project is and why it's needed. You have the 5-year projects, actually 10-year, we got that thereafter, counts the other 5. But the 10-year project spending plan, and then you have the estimated project timeline at the bottom. And each project has these pages. Another thing to note that I don't have an arrow next to, but if we can see is this budget request here. So each year we take a look at what was, if it's a carry forward project, one we've worked on before and it's just continuing. We look at what was budgeted last year, and if there's a new request this year, this would be an increase. But this one actually has to be a decrease. So last year, this must have been budgeted somewhere around 900,000, and now it's going to be down to 402. So we've got a budget decrease of $485,000 on this particular project. And I'll show you more of the detail on how that's calculated when we get to the CIP master.
That's because we went to lining.
Yeah, change of scope. We decided to not do a replacement, but a rehab to try to save some dollars.
Yeah. Well, and headache.
Significant. I think it has a bad impact to the.
So this next page is a lot of numbers, hard to see, and it's actually a 1/4 of what I'm going to be presenting. This is the top half of page 35 of the CIP master. And here I just want to show you, this breaks down all of the carry forward projects. So here are the carry forward projects. The title here, these are projects that were approved in previous budgets and worked on in previous budgets and just haven't been completed yet. So there might be multi-year projects, or they got delayed, or for whatever reason they're being carried forward from last budget year for this budget year. So, and each one has a page reference to the page that we just showed. So if you want to see like where the Las Postas water line was, it's on page 66. And here's where that would be. So here's that project summarized on the CIP master. And you can see here in a little tiny print, $485,000 decrease under new request for a reduction. So taking a look at this though, the total, and I'm not going to be able to read this. So it looks like 64.7. So the previous budgets on the carry forward project was $64.7 million. The estimated amount spent to date on those projects is about $9.3 million, it looks like. And then we've got a carry forward, which is the difference between those two numbers, about 55.4 or something. And then new requests are, is that 29.6? 20.6 for new requests. So that those are the adjustments or increases in those project costs.
Due to scope change or?
So those I'm going to go through some major changes, just major reasons for that change, and then Jason, Ed, and James are going to help explain why we're requesting those increases.
Got a couple of questions.
Sure.
The one listed for page 59, asset management replacement schedule. I assume that will generate projects when is asset management generating projects now, or we need to get to the point of having that scheduled done.
So that project is the AMP, so that's the asset management plan that we've been developing.
Right.
And so eventually, yes, that will sort of set up the framework for
Generating CIP.
correct.
And I guess just a comment. I've noticed in past years, we haven't accomplished what we said we were gonna accomplish for CIP. I would just put it out to just be realistic in what we think we can accomplish. Because it affects, we get criticized for that developer reserve sometimes.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of those very conversations
Okay.
internally.
That's the last I'll bring in.
I'll bring it up more later.
Okay.
Hearing the message, and we will definitely take another review for sure.
Well, and just a reminder too, that this is just the first pass, like all we've done at this point is put all the budget pages together and then now summarize it, so we haven't really started to move out the projects or adjust the timeline for those
Yeah,
projects.
and that's an excellent point. So with the first pass down in engineering, Jason gets everything from all the project managers, me, Ryan and Elizabeth. And then just on its own, just looks at it for, kind of first, it doesn't make sense. And after we put it all together, then we start saying, is this even, can we even accomplish this? And then it still becomes ambitious.
Yeah.
Because people want it accomplished.
Yeah, no, I realize that. I mean, you can hire more staff internally, you can hire more outside consultants, but you still have to manage those outside consultants.
Yeah, the outside consultants not the answer.
So that's clearly one constraint, just the resources, the people you have, the other could be money too, so we need to make sure that we have adequate resources.
So, yeah, it's just saying, just be realistic on what we think we can accomplish.
And this will be the first time that Jason, everybody's seeing this all summarized in one page by year, so there's not all the documents.
So maybe that's a timely comment.
Yeah,
Oh, no, I saw it last night when I was reviewing it, and I was like, okay.
so in looking at the $20.6 million, the major reasons for those increases are this would be the Twin Oaks Valley Road sewer improvement. Phase 1, it looks like, is $7.8 million. And I don't know if you want to talk about them after I've pointed them out, Jason, or if you want to just go one by one.
Yeah, no, we can go either way, we go one by one.
Fill them as they come up, so.
So for that project, but the board in December, I believe, approved a new project to do a sub-area master plan for the Twin Oaks sewer basin. And that's because we identified that main trunk line in Twin Oaks was under capacity. For the new developments that's coming in, we have a sprinkling of commercial and residential developments coming in. And currently we can't accept any more sewer in that line. So we're currently doing a sub-area master plan, and then building off of that, of course, will be the improvements for that project.
But really, the sub-area master plan, the reason we're doing that is because the intent is to get the cost of doing that project, because that project is not within our capacity fees, and adding it to the capacity fees. Essentially will be this project and the sub-area master plan will be obviously noticed out to not only the community, but also to the developers, with the understanding that they're going to pay for this through capacity fees. So this will end up getting reimbursed over time to capacity fees from everybody. Is the deal. And that's why we're doing that, what we call SAMP, sub-area.
But it probably won't be just the developers in that area, it'll probably be spread
Yes.
across all development, kind of a postage stamp.
Which is what we do currently for all of our.
Yeah, and the board will be getting presentations on this, and so you will see this probably in the June, July timeframe.
And we saw that the engineering committee, did that go to the board?
Just the approval to do the study.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, so we will finalize it, and the board will have input and a presentation on that.
On the results.
Yeah. And there's a good chance with the SAMP itself, when we start rolling, talking numbers, they'll both go to the engineering and finance committee, because those are a capacity fee issue that the finance committee will be directly involved in.
Yeah, so that 7.7, that's based on current pricing that we're seeing now. We're estimating that for next fiscal year, we're only looking to spend about $500,000, about 525,000. And that's really to start the planning and the design phase to get this. This is obviously, it's a multi-year project.
So what percentage of that 7.7 do you think will be recovered in the capacity fees?
Well, we're,
Just
we're,
a-
no, not 100%, because we're going to be replacing existing pipe and upsizing, so it's just capacity split. That's what we're.
The study will tell what percentage break.
Yeah,
The breakdown's 3466. So,
66 capacity?
capacity.
66% capacity.
I think it'll be really important, you know, because I wear two hats, you know, I'm on the P3 committee as well, and that part of that is public awareness. I think it'll be really, really important that as we're explaining, you know, some of these increases, that any opportunity that we have to talk about how this will be passed on in capacity fees. Ergo,
Yep.
this is, you know, this gets to this issue that keeps coming up. I think it's gonna be really important to explain that over and over and have, you know, be on the record for explaining it so that we can point to it. Yeah, so we can point to it and say, you know, we're accounting for that, you know, 66% or whatever the study shows will be passed on so that folks are aware.
It'll be a lot of heavy lifting between engineering and myself that goes on, anytime you do capacity feeding. So, and all the committees or any appropriate committee will be obviously notified, we'll be out in front of it, not only with the community, but out in front of it with the development commission, because we're the ones paying the majority of it.
Understood, and I think that I just can't say it enough. I think that, you know, part of our recurrent issue is with the marketing of this, the way that we do things, and I think that we can mitigate that and head it off if we are having.
I get it. We don't want the community to think that they're paying for 100% of this and it's benefiting, development. So,
And by it being 66% capacity, it'll be shown in the reserve report as that cost coming 66% out of capacity. So it's
Especially when they're sitting in their cars, gridlock or construction.
So the next project I wanted to point out. Seems to go to sleep on me or something. There we go. Is the chlorine contact tank expansion. And that's about $4.9 million.
Yeah, you're just gonna see a consistent theme for construction costs going up. And the chlorine contact tank is another one of these projects. So we're elevating that project because we have state and federal funding. So we were currently allocated 2.4 million in grants. So obviously, that's not reflected here, but yeah, those are just project increases.
And also going back to the well with both state and federal funding, we're actually hoping our goal, I don't know if we're gonna get there, is to get 3/4 of the total project costs covered. That's the maximum we can get. So we're gonna keep on going back to get somewhere else. We probably won't get there, but we hope to get somewhere around 60 to 65% is probably realistic, but our stated goal. When we go with our lobbyists, when we go back to the state, is to get 3/4 of the total project costs covered.
Yeah, and again, I think, you know, there's so much money out there available. That's what, every time we go to a conference, we hear that there's money available, and I appreciate that you're on top of it and trying to get that money. And I think when we get that money, that we should make a big deal of it. You know, it's.
Oh, that's the blue water strategy, so the North County, that's for the federal, and with the state, we still go with the North County group for, help me out with the state, it's, not USBR, but
No, not yet, yeah, it's not Prep 84, is it?
it might be like the property.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Property for funding.
So that's the bigger group.
Yeah, yeah, and then so we've been, part of that lobbying group, not receiving much money from it except for studies for a while, except for a few small projects here. But we've been holding up our allocations for this project, so that's why we get, you know, hopefully upwards of well above 50% of that project covered, because we're not using them on other projects, because most of the other projects don't qualify.
And we're in the design phase, so we're about 60% design. We're moving along with the anticipation of bidding it out next December. So we'll start getting those big construction dollars at the end of next fiscal year, but really the bulk of it's going to be the following fiscal year is when the bulk of that the construction dollars are going to.
What's the inflation rate in the construction market right now?
Gosh, I think it's
Mike, do you know?
7.
3,000%.
No, it was below
last year.
CPI.
Yeah,
It was like 4 something, but that was December of 2022.
News record.
Yeah, an engineering news record.
The bid prices that we're seeing locally are outpacing that 4% by far, so it's, and we're having trouble getting bids because contractors are too busy.
That's the feedback we're hearing, is that there's a lot of work out there, there's a lot of agencies putting work out, so the contractors could be a little bit more choosy.
We sent out a pump station pipeline job recently and the bids came in, it's a $5.6 million estimate, bids came, the one bid came in at 8 million. So we're repackaging that project. Well, we're separating it out to
I know it's
draw more.
Was that money?
Company we hadn't worked with before, so all the, and you know, our engineers, we're actively, you know, talking to contractors and trying to gauge their interest, what are their questions, you know, what, you know. So even the people that we were comfortable working with and enjoy working with us didn't put them in there.
I wonder if it's possible, and this is, you know, down the road, once we, you know, when we have these estimates and we factor in, you know, we're hoping to get, you know, 50% covered, whatever. When that happens, is it possible to come to the board and say, look, you know, we estimated this, but we got 50% of it covered, and talk about it in a board meeting, because, you know, this all goes on behind the scenes.
Typically, we do that like when we do an award, a construction contract award, that's when the big dollars are being awarded, and then we tell that we got this outside funding, and we make a big deal out of it.
Okay, I think because I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Then the public certainly doesn't remember it,
Yeah.
so
And
let's
we'll remind you.
lights and sounds and bells and whistles,
Yeah,
because
we
I
need
mean, what's a big deal?
Continually remind the public.
Yes,
And you're correct for not remembering, because it has happened, but it doesn't happen that often.
Mhm.
So we don't get funding for every project, unfortunately.
sure, but when we do, let's make sure that we think about it from in terms of the public perception perspective as well.
You heard Jason mention that 2.4 million we are gonna get is not reflected here, and there's another couple projects in here where there's cost sharing with other agencies, same thing. We budget for the full cost of the construction, then there's a revenue that we account for that revenue that comes in a different place, but it's not shown here, so.
These are the costs only in this.
Those presenters in the conference that talk about all that money that's available, they don't mention all the hoops you have to jump through, and then all of those hoops are on fire.
Yeah.
So when they're working on this, along with the consultant, it's a lot.
Yeah, this project is all.
And it pays off,
But
right?
A lot of sound over, there's a lot of competition.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's why we leverage the.
The North County group, yeah, it still takes a lot of effort though, but you know, most of the time that money it comes with strings, so you have to spend 75 cents to get 25 cents, usually, so.
And we don't always qualify because it could be a disadvantage requirement that we don't need, so all those funding sources you hear about, we don't have access to all.
And then Jody, you get to celebrate too with a single audit.
Yes. That's true.
So if we get a certain amount of federal funding, we have to have an additional audit done in addition to the independent audit that we do. I think it's 750,000 if we go over that. Are we going over in 24? Okay.
Well, it depends on, we're not, because it's, we have to finish the project, put in a request for reimbursement. And then the feds to USBR could take up to 18 months.
September 2025.
Maybe not
25 or 26.
Yeah, I think September 2025, yes.
No, by the time we get the check though.
Oh, no, that'll be later.
That could be up to 18 months. It's been more like 6, but it could be up to 18 months.
Yeah, in the early 90s, Rancho got a ton of FEMA money. There was all the heavy rains there. I think it was around 1993. We got so much money that we had to trigger all this extra auditing for this federal money. I mean, it created a whole new department at Rancho. Just for the reporting, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Unintended consequences.
Yeah. So it definitely comes with strings attached.
So the next project is the MRF conversion to sodium hypochlorite, which is increasing by $1.7 million. So from 3.8 to 5.6.
Yep, and that's a project near and dear to Director Elthup's heart. So this project is similar, some increases in scope. So we did add a proof of concept to the project, some additional biological phosphorus profiling, just to make sure that we're building a system that's going to work for the the exact flow and constituents that are going through it. So, and this project also has shifted because of the grant funding for the chlorine contact expansion. We need to prioritize that project to capture that funding. So this project's going to slip a little, still in budget. So no dollars planning to spend next fiscal year. So what you're seeing is an increase in scope and an increase in just estimating, scaling that another year out.
So what's the end point? What do you project?
To complete it in June of 2026. So
But
I take it back.
Yeah.
We do have dollars planning to spend next year. That's really to complete the profiling and the proof of concept. And then we're gonna sort of have to take a break the following fiscal year while we're building the CCTs, right?
Because they're co-located, so you
Yeah.
can't have two contractors building at the same time, and we have grant funding associated. But however, we understand the acute hazard of having chlorine gas. So what we're doing is we're making a robust temporary system, and we're gonna actually be off chlorine gas.
Hopefully by the end of this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
good.
so that gets rid of the real driver as far as. So we'll be on temp.
Need to lose sleep at night,
Yeah.
it's not getting that thing done.
So we'll be off chlorine gas probably towards the end of this calendar year. And then we'll be on a temporary system for an extended period.
Okay. We'll bring
I
it.
think that public safety issue is really also something to talk about. That's the first thing, when I saw that many, I was reminded of, this is actually a public safety issue, so it's.
I've spent my career trying to get rid of the use of chlorine gas, even though it's great, it does the job fantastic, better than anything else, but we had 5 sites with chlorine gas when I started here. Down to 1.
I think we can't
Down to
talk
the
enough.
big one.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the biggest one.
yeah, 6 tons at a time.
And that's why it's the last one.
Okay, so those projects make up the vast majority of the increase in new requests for fiscal year 2024. Next, we're going to look at the 5-year spending plan, which is the top right half of page 35. No, 36, sorry. So here we can see on the right, the 5-year spending plan. It's important to note, though, that this is just for our 5-year and 10-year financial plan. During the budget process, the board will only be really considering approval of the 1 year of CIP expenditure, which is 2024. And for carry forward projects, that number is $35.7 million. And that's made up mostly of the Trace Amigos waterline replacement of $5.5 million to be spent in fiscal year 2024. Promises, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We just had another break.
Just over the weekend, yeah.
And can you please remind me where this is?
By the strawberry fields in Vista.
It's the northern end of.
Yeah, just north of Gopher Canyon Road.
Yeah. It's about 7,800 feet of pipe that we're replacing. This old steam pipe.
Steam pipe,
Yeah,
super thin
super
steel.
thin, barely
hard
weld
wrapped.
on it.
Well, we can't even, the one welder that can weld on it doesn't want to work on it anymore. It's so thin.
Rick Post is
Rick
on.
Post, yeah, and so now that this project is moving forward, we're putting full circle repair clamps. It's less overtime, gets the customers back in water faster, because to weld on it, it takes.
That's the same vintage as the Rainbow Water District.
Yeah.
Must have had a good deal on.
We bought it from farmers. The district bought this pipe from farmers. It wasn't designed for what it's used for.
Yeah, exactly. The history on this pipe is towards the origination of the district.
Right,
It was-
mid-50s.
Yeah, exactly. It was a pipe it's already in the ground. You could have it basically.
Yeah, so we're 90% design. This includes some easement acquisition, and so it takes much more coordination with Bonsall Farms is the big property owner that we're going through.
So we'll see that as well. We'll see requests for that coming through the board as well, the easement acquisition process.
That'll just be part of the design. So no,
So are they a willing participant?
They finally are now.
We're there.
This project got a little bit stalled because they originally wanted this new easement and they said, okay, well, you need to give us that easement. They said, well, no, we don't want to give it to you. I'm like, well, either we're in our existing easement or in the new easement. You guys got to figure out, we're trying to work with you here. So trying to be a good neighbor. So Yeah, that's eventually, finally now.
Trying not to condemn things.
That's
So
finally
one
now
of the
being
historic
resolved.
problems is our existing easement goes right through the middle of their farmland and they run it over with equipment from time to time. It's been a while.
They rip
Yes.
and they
Yeah.
rip right through the top
So-
of our several times.
So-
Even though it's marked.
Yeah, so our solution is let's get out of the middle of your farmland. Give us a new easement on your drive path where you're not farming. And it's a win-win. You have more farmable area and we're not gonna get constant main breaks, which they have to pay for.
Mhm.
So it's a win for you. So at first it seemed like it was all thumbs up, but then when they came time to actually give us the easement. They stopped and then now we're there.
Yes, we're finally there. Yeah. Well, some slight tweaks. We're doing some last minute tweaks.
There's also individual homeowners up in the north end that the pipeline actually goes through their property. We're getting it out of their property, but yet even though we're getting it out and we're leaving them. It still takes time to explain them.
But they're happy about it.
Yeah, so going to construction next fiscal year.
Sounds to me like none of the three friends really knew what they were doing.
Yes.
Not a dad joke?
Tres Amigos.
That's a good one.
It's a good movie.
Okay, so next we're gonna look at the Montiel lift station replacement. That's gonna be $5 million in fiscal year 2024.
Yeah, so this is the project that the AGM mentioned. This project was designed, put out on the street about a month or so. So it's been advertised, it's been bid. We got one bid, $3.4 million over the construction estimate. So, and most of the feedback we got was, one, we're too busy. Two, there's a lot of risk, which we can't really mitigate. But the other comment we got back were pipeline contractors and site contractors didn't want to partner to do the job. They kind of wanted it split up. So that's the repackaging that we're looking at, is can we split this up into a pipeline project, which we can get out, which we plan to get out on the street next week. And then with a slight lag for the lift station, separately put that out to bid. So this is really just a reflection of the true construction dollars that we've actually seen now in the bid price.
And this is to replace that temporary lift station built in 1985.
Which during these recent storms, how busy were our collection staff doing round robins pumping out of that wet well, because it's not
Yeah.
capacity to handle it.
Every one of these storms, it's been.
And there's
sleepless.
development coming in that area as well. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Yeah, we've been questions,
but
So
this year we've been very busy.
there is offsetting costs though. So when we put in the pipeline, it gets rid of replacing. A deep sewer that goes through that Nordall shopping center that's got Kohl's and Walmart in it. Instead, we're putting a shallow force main, and now we don't have to replace that deep sewer. So we end up probably today's pricing about a $4 million offset. So no matter what, we would have been spending the money, but we don't have to do those other projects. Yeah. That's I'll call it a grayish, not a silver line.
So that sewer line that you don't have to replace, will it just become sort of decommissioned and?
No, it still carries gravity sewer through it. So what happened was the pump station would pump a bunch of sewer into an existing gravity sewer. Now we're extending the pump portion way further down to a point where we have more capacity. So we don't have to replace that.
Show.
Yeah, and so it's only a 4-foot deep line instead, while the existing sewer in that shopping center, if you ever been in that shopping center, is pretty crowded. It's somewhere between 8 to 12 feet deep, so.
Because they built over it.
Yeah, it's still.
Yeah, it's kind of on the west end.
It goes right there by where the buffet past McDonald's, and then goes down that drive line past the Verizon store between the store and the device. And then behind Costco.
Appreciate it.
So the next project we're gonna look at is the Metal Arc Fail Safe Rehabilitation, Buena Range.
Yep, and so that project is final design. It's actually being reviewed by the city of Carlsbad just to do an environmental check. Because this project is, as you know, the fail-safe line takes secondary effluent from the treatment plant to its own ocean outfall. And we've had 3 breaks in the last 3 years or so. Yeah. So during those breaks and repairs, we took a look at the line, and it was basically Swiss cheese. It's old ductile, unprotected ductile iron pipe going through basically a swamp area. In fact, there's a portion of it that's actually under a building. So we're going to be relocating it. We're going to be relining portions of it. We're going to be adding in access points, so we'll be able to inspect it in the future. And this portion is 50% reimbursement from Buena. So you're not seeing that here, but they will be contributing about $2.6 million to this project as well. So we're hoping to actually have that bid out here at the end of this fiscal year with all the construction dollars hitting next fiscal year.
And the next one is the City of San Marcos Creek District Phase 1.
So this is, as you know, this is a city project. They're building the bridges and redoing Discovery. And so all those city street improvements include relocations for our utilities. So this is a reimbursement to the city for all that work. Increases in staff costs have happened on this project. There's been a lot of change orders that have hit this project as well. And they're looking to finish, I believe, by December.
We have staff out tonight, in fact, for the Veracruz shutdown.
Okay.
So we're helping
Has that,
inspectors.
has that required relocating our lines higher up because they've filled in?
Yeah, so
Yep.
our sewer line, we couldn't do anything about, so now we have a really deep sewer on Discovery,
Right.
but the water line is a brand new one. And then new lines going across the bridge.
Yeah, we got new lines in the bridge.
Yeah.
Crossing the bridge across.
And finally, just to shake things up a little bit, I think this next one's gonna be Ed.
What?
So the storage building and shop, $2.4 million fiscal year.
Out of the hot seat, please.
What are you building, the Taj Mahal?
No.
The Rochester one is in.
For his Bentley.
Missed it.
It's for my Bentley.
Oh, it's written too.
The biggest change in the scope is due to regulations. So it was gonna be just storage, but meters is one of the departments that's in there and they need testing, so they have to have a meter test bench. SB 555, the water loss, that's one of the regulations that is impacting this, and then the new ones that have come out. Where we're gonna be restricted on how many gallons per capita per day based on the assessment the state does of our district. So all of this means we need to step up and start testing to begin with for larger meters, but then eventually there'll be a certain percentage of residential meters that they're gonna have to pull and test. So when we did the job walkthrough for the design, that's when we saw the numbers just jump through the roof, because the architects are, oh, you gotta have this, you gotta have this, more power has to be there. There's a lot more that's involved.
How have we done meter testing on large meters by contract?
Yeah, and we don't have anything, we haven't had a meter test bench. Probably in 20 years, I think, that's how long it's been.
So there's somebody locally contractors.
Actually, meters is in Wes's department, so I'm not sure who they use for that, but I know we want, every once in a while, we either pull the meters for testing or we replace it.
Yeah, we rarely test meters. It's mostly if the customer requests it and then if it comes back, it's actually functioning. We ask the customer to reimburse us for the cost of testing the meters.
It's one of the areas of improvement that we're looking at over the next several years, again, to get our meter more accurate, to make sure we're not overcharging people, charging.
And on water loss.
Yeah, so this is part of the proactive meter replacement program.
So Wes and I talked about this, if we didn't include it in this project, then we probably have to build a whole new building on the other side of this wing. There, we have a little bit of property over there, we could have built it, and then this cost would be doubled, because now we're building two buildings. So instead, we're like, okay, we're already building this building, let's include this meter test bench facility in there as well.
One of the challenges we have is we don't have our SCG&E power to this building, we're maxed out, so we need to increase the amount of power to do any type of expansion, so that's gonna bear costs.
So in thinking about looking at this, $2 million for something called storage building and shop,
It's not the best title.
that's a hard spell. So
But that was the original title, so we can change.
maybe it becomes meter system testing facility,
Yeah.
something like that, just because, you know, we don't have many people that go through this with a fine tooth comb, but we have some.
Certainly.
And I think that, you know, the true purpose of this, it's a high-tech facility. It's not just.
Right.
you know, like a storage and a break room, or, you know, and I'm being a little bit facetious, but
No, but
I think-
you're correct. We do have people that are gonna look at that and say, wow, just for storage and shop. So,
We'll change the name.
yeah, we'll massage the name. I hesitated in doing that because it's already been in front of the board and you don't want to bring it up. Was this new? It's like, well, no, we renamed it, but. That's a
With
good
the
point.
shades of Don Martin's locker room.
Oh, yes, yes. We could call him back on.
It's not going to be a lean-to.
That's the last one of the detailed projects for the carry forwards. Taking a look at the bottom half of page 35.
Go back, Wes, real quick. So just a comment on this, and it's to Director Ellithorpe's point. You'll notice in 23, 24, there's a lot of projects. And then as you go further out, there's fewer and fewer projects. So part of the question is, can we really deliver that $35 million? So as we refine the CIP, you'll start to see some of those projects get moved out. There are some projects that are, I'll call them, they're teed up, they're designed, they've gone out for bid. We're not going to move those. Those are ready to
Yeah,
go,
it makes
right?
sense.
So it's kind of a degree of likelihood that we'll get the dollars spent. Some we know are high likelihood, and some will just say, hey, we need to move this project. We either don't have the money or the people to get them out. And so you'll start to see more of a balance over the 5 years as we go forward towards getting the budget approved.
Yeah, we should be in a high construction phase on CIP for the next 2 years at least. And then it's more of a now looking at, do we have the capacity to move other projects along while we're doing all that construction?
And this project's in 30% design, so we're already moving forward in the design phase.
Yeah, you can see it's like 36 million, that's 20 million in year 2 and 11 million in year 3. So we'll smooth those out more.
We'll be pushing some of that stuff back and
Yeah, hopefully the asset management replacement schedule, you get tools to make some of those decisions.
yeah, especially on the asset replacement schedule, once we start working on that, that's a whole nother. You will have to complete.
Yes, and part of it maybe should help us with the prioritization. Because right now, this doesn't really show any prioritization.
So then looking at the bottom half of page 35, these are the new projects. You can see up here, new projects. And the page numbers referencing those projects. The total new project requests, which are new requests for fiscal year 2024, is $81.7 million. It's important to note, though, that Encina is 38.5 of that. And future projects, which are projects. So future projects are projects that will not be worked on in fiscal year 2024. But will be worked on in the 5-year and 10-year plan, so we include them here for that financial plan. So they're not going to be worked on in 24 at all, and they're $28.5 million. So those two together, $66.9 million of the 81 million. The actual new project requests, there are 35 projects for $14.7 million in new requests, and last year that number was 39 projects and $9.1 million. So it's increased by about $5.6 million from last year this year as far as the new project requests first. For everything, this is water and sewer.
That's on the sewer side, we're gonna be doing a cost of service study.
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah, we've been talking about that.
We're gonna be driving.
Yeah, because with the increases we're seeing from the Encina Wastewater Authority, our internal costs, I don't think that our current rate structure will support that. So we've been doing a cost of service study.
It's been like 6 years. I think it's the adjusted rates or
Yeah.
longer.
It's been over seven.
Yeah.
The committee could see just from the scope and the cost and the number of sewer projects that we're really going to be reducing sewer reserve levels over the next several years.
Yes.
Just the outfall project alone, it's majority of the reserves.
But, and again, a lot of that's all according to a plan. We've been intentionally increasing that reserve because we knew a lot of these projects were coming. So.
And you can see this column here, the funding source. This tells you where they're being funded out of. 110 is water replacement, 210 is sewer replacement, 250 is reclaimed, and you've got some 220s and 120s in there for capacity projects. So those are the funding sources. And then next, we're going to take a look at the major reasons for the new request increases. And the biggest request for fiscal year 2024 is the Montiel force main and gravity sewer improvements. And Jason hit on this a little bit. This was actually splitting out the other project from last year.
Yeah, this is just the pipeline component of the lift station pipeline project. So,
That includes that 10-inch DIP.
yes,
Sweet.
yeah, we'll be rehabbing some existing ductile iron pipe, the gravity lines that feed into the lift station.
So then the last thing to note on this page is that the total CIP cost for the 5-year and 10-year plan are $157.8 million in this year's proposed or draft budget. Last year, that number was $137 million, so we've got a $20.3 million increase from last year this year on the total project costs. And we've kind of gone through the differences there, but the major differences are new projects increased by 5.6 million, Twin Oaks Valley increased by the 7.8 million new request, and then the chlorine contacts with $4.9 million. So next, we're going to, I just wanted to point out, this is also the CIP master. This is the bottom portions of 35 and 36 of new project requests. But you'll see highlighted here are the costs for Encino over the next 5 years. They've got $38.4 million. Or 38.5 and of the costs, so they're 38.5 of the 81.6. And if you look at fiscal year 2024, we have a total cost of 12.2 in new projects, and seen as $5.6 million. That's almost half of our total new project requests are in Encino.
Is there any one project that could come from Encino that's driving this, or is it a bunch of small?
There's a smattering of projects, is it the heat dryer?
The heat dryer, they've been effectively pushing
Yeah,
back.
pushing that one back.
Yeah, so
That's
it's a
pretty
bunch of
good.
other projects, yeah. So that's the concern. If you look at the 5-year forecast for EWA, they're showing what 5.6 in year one, but then you're starting to get up in the 7 and 8s. So every year when Encino does their budget, we go through the song and dance and say, we can't afford $7-8 million. So they push it back. There's a constant pushback
Future
in the first year, but yeah, so those all those projects keep getting delayed.
I have a really fundamental question, and I'm sure that you all look at this frequently. Why do we keep going with Encino? Is it possible to, is it possible to upgrade Meadowlark to do our own treatment?
We have no solids treatment at Meadowlark. So we just do liquid treatment at Meadowlark and we send all the solids down to Encino. That's a very expensive operation. We don't have, it would be a lot of money and we don't have the space.
Yeah, it's still a better value to go.
It is, yeah.
Than to upgrade our own facility.
Yeah, and there's been discussions by board members in the past that flipped it, said, why do we even have Meadowlark? Why don't we just ship 100% of our sewer? And that's an option, but we still have certain areas that would have to be, you'd have to have pumps to get it over to EWA because they're too low to gravity over there. So.
Has there ever been a cost analysis to show the break-even point?
We did
one, yeah, we did one a while ago, yeah, a few years ago, and yeah, well. Let me rephrase that. We did want to see what it would take to get rid of Meadowlark, and we never break even because of the cost of actually transporting the sewer, because Meadowlark's at the bottom. We never break even, never get a cost back, and we've never done one of getting rid of EWA because we don't have the physical space, the physics of it. We don't have the physical space to even do the treatment.
What's the split?
Or
Flows, we're on a sewage flow.
well, we're getting roughly 7 MGD-ish average. No, that's
It's around 6, well, except for the.
yeah,
the shirt,
this year will be high.
It's been around
Well, it's above 6, but we're basically treating 3.5 to 3.75 into recycled water average throughout the year.
Over half.
Yeah, but our flows to EWA are constantly between 2 and 3 when we're producing high recycled water. 2 and 3 MGD.
We just finished the quarterly metrics report. Put that.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be in the budget.
I'm the only one that.
I mean, it'll be in the agenda for the next meeting.
I get bored.
So then I have some good news. This is the end of the numbers for today.
What?
So going forward, our next steps in May 2023, we will be putting together the reserve projection. So we take all this information, we'll smooth out the CIP, and we'll create the reserve projections for the next 5 and 10 years. That will, once we've got those done, we'll have the first draft of the proposed budget, and we'll be reviewing that and trying to make it as good as possible. And then on May 3rd, that's a tentative date for a full board workshop where we'll give a draft budget update and discuss all items of the budget with the board. That'll be the long full presentation. And then on May 17th, will be the first review of the proposed budget, so depending on the amount of changes, that one could be a pretty brief presentation of the proposed budget. And finally, in June, we will put together the recommended budget and bring it to the board on June 7th, hopefully for approval and adoption. And with that, it's time to party.
And we heard the committee loud and clear, we will take a look at that CIP budget, and look at something that hopefully is optimistic, but and a little bit more realistic. And push some projects.
Okay, so the draft water operating budget had some blank spots in it. There was some of the revenue isn't there yet, but
We're hoping to have those for May 30th.
I noticed that there's 2.4 million less revenue in water sales. So what kind of impact does that have?
Yeah, so it's still a lot early, and as I've always kind of explained, that the big difference in water is weather. You know, COVID didn't really hit us that much. All these other things really haven't hit us that much as weather, and we haven't not seen rain like this in ages. We're down about 6% in sales year to date, and our purchases are down.
Month to month comparison.
It's year to date, the 9 months, 9 months, 9 months this fiscal year versus 9 months of last fiscal year. We're down about 6.4%, excuse me. There has been a corresponding offset in some of the expenditures, but it's not a one for one, as I always kind of tell you guys. If we're down 2.4 in revenue, we're probably down 2 in
It's
expenditures.
almost exactly two. Our expenditures on water purchase
Okay.
is 2 million less because of the sales.
So the nets.
400,000.
Yeah. So the I'm hoping it doesn't rain as much.
It's
But it's supposed to rain this week.
It's such a mixed message.
It's only,
Yeah.
it's only 20%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a mixed message, because we want people to conserve, but it does affect us. So, we want a good weather, we want good predictability. When we get these extreme rains, obviously it's gonna affect the amount of water sales that we have. But if we get extreme heat, it can make up for that in a couple of months.
Right.
Yeah.
Always
So we're
good.
reading on the projection to be as accurate as possible. So Mike and I were talking about it yesterday, but we want to try to be as accurate as possible with the revenue and expenditure projections. And then as far as the revenue and purchases for the budget year 2024, we really don't have all the information a lot of already yet, so we're waiting on it as well. But we're hoping to have some estimates at the May 3rd meeting.
Always said in our industry, we're the worst salespeople.
Yeah.
Bring in the revenue from selling water, but don't use it. Don't use it.
Yeah, and right now it's a little too early to predict the expenditure portion of it, because as you know, water authority thing, what was it, 11? I don't even know what their last numbers were. Double digits.
13.7.
13.7.
I've got a admin and finance committee for a budget workshop this afternoon down there, so.
I heard it's gonna be below double digits.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will, because they were very conservative on every number.
They're supposed to give some options
Yeah.
for the board. to consider.
Curious how painful those options are.
Yeah,
Well, whatever they land on, I think it's important to, that we talk about how we are saving our ratepayers pain because we have a cap.
Yeah, and we can quantify that cap. So whatever it ends up at, we can count, let's say it ends up at 10% water authority rate increase. You can only pass 6.5. So that 3.5 that we're short, we can quantify what that means to reserves.
We protected you from, or some such, some language that.
Yeah.
Really makes it known what the benefit.
Yeah, and that's part of what the reserves are there for, to buffer those swings.
Knowing the water authority gives us the direct resulting revenue requirements, so that's why we're going to be.
yeah, thankfully, we have an investor-owned utility that charges exorbitant rates for their SDG&E. I mean.
We're not as bad as SDG.
That's water special since 1955.
It's not as bad as.
We're not gonna put that in our mission statement.
Perfectly crafted and nested. So it's, not nearly as bad.
We could be worse. SDG.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the maddening thing is that we fight for these lower percentage numbers because they're much more in the public view because we're local.
Although I did just read in the newspaper this morning, they're going with like a fixed rate.
Based on your income.
Yeah.
No.
So if you make more, they're gonna charge you more.
SCG.
Still less than what I'm paying right now, though. Okay.
This,
Considerably.
it's not approved yet, but that's,
Yeah.
actually, it's a state law or regulation that was passed that's making them do that.
Oh, interesting.
Uh-huh.
They're big up the profit motivation, so I wonder how they're gonna slice that pie.
It was in the paper, and if I remember the percentages, and it's middle class will wind up paying quite a bit more on the fixed rate. It's supposed to bring down the commodity rate. Oh,
And I think it's only electricity, right? It's not gas. It's
yes,
only
correct.
electricity.
Yeah, only electricity.
So that's all I have for today. We actually got done in an hour and 20 minutes. So
Wow,
pretty good. It's a lot of
Thank you.
information.
Thank you for putting all this together and
I
for
appreciate you putting up the questions.
So Wes, in this calendar, I didn't see, is there another finance committee meeting or
No.
all, everything else is board?
board workshops from now on, unless the
Okay.
committee wants another meeting, we can always put something
Yeah.
in. But usually from here, we do the draft budget, present that to the full board, and then get all the feedback to make any changes.
I'm good with that and director board action, yes.
Okay.
And different.
And in the first board presentation, we'll tell them that we've taken it through committee and gotten feedback and incorporated within us.
And I think just one comment at the, when we, and I can't remember if we've done this in the past, but as we've been going through, we've been talking about some of these projects that are responsible for the highest variances. There is the potential to recover some of the costs, so. Not necessarily for every project, but maybe at the end, saying something like, we could potentially recover, it's potential, it's not certain, but. Having that in the budget as well, just for transparency, but also,
I think we put that, I mean, there's a,
We do.
yeah,
we do.
we.
So I work with engineering every year, and we get the estimated like reimbursements from those projects, and they're put as a revenue source to offset the costs each year.
Yeah. It's just not always on the same page, right? They'll go up the CIP and then they'll show you something.
yes.
So you pay for it first, and then you collect it later.
And probably maybe in our board budget presentation, we'll highlight it in the presentation, so if anybody in the community decides to go back and look at the presentation, they can see what Wes says. Hey, we're gonna receive, right now it's 2.4 million, we're gonna go for more money on this project, we're gonna get 50% of this cost back from our partner agency, that has 50% liability, those type of statements.
And I think saying it,
Yeah,
Multiple times, yeah.
yeah, so this way they actually see it.
We had a table we presented 1 year with all, I think we did it multiple years, with all the projects in the year we're expecting reimbursement from them. We kind of summarize that in detail and more for one, because it's one line item in the reserve projections, but we can present that table to say, here are all the projects that we're expecting to get reimbursement from.
I think the big thing is just you presenting it, so if anybody looks back, they can see, oh, look at what they're doing.
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, with that, I think we're adjourned.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Good job. Wes.
Job, Wes.